Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Rich Law. And 7 years ago, he attempted suicide and a near-death experience. Hi, Rich.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. So feel free to start wherever you like and take as long as you like.
Okay. Yeah, this is a story that I should probably tell it more often because I still have a hard time telling it. Because I still think it just sounds so ridiculous. And it actually, honestly, to lead into it, for years before this, my favorite thing to research and listen to was near-death experiences. And I would just get like addicted to it. And I've probably heard every NDE video on the internet that existed up to that point. And I'm not sure if that was kind of making me depressed or if just everything going wrong in my life, and then along with it, the more of these stories that I hear, and my life is really hard. I just keep thinking, what am I doing here? What's the point of this? Why am I here? If it's so amazing over there, I don't want to be here. And so life just started spiraling further and further downhill to the point to where I actually ended up leaving my first marriage. It was a really toxic marriage. I left there with the intention of picking myself up, getting up on my feet independently, and going from there. Of course, that didn't work out that way. I ended up spiraling further and further downhill into alcoholism, and has become a very, very heavy, heavy, heavy drinker. And at one point, I got suspended from work because I showed up drunk. So I have a week off of work, and I ended up connecting with somebody on Facebook through a comment thread who was local. It was like a friend of a friend that I hadn't met before. And one thing led to another, and I said, well, you know what? You can come hang out at my house. I'm off work for a week. I'm bored. I have nothing to do. You like to drink? You can come hang out with me. So I went and picked her up, and the house that I was living in New Albany, Indiana, was an old house. Most of the buildings in the houses in the downtown area of that little town in Indiana were really old and historic. And that just kind of adds to it how creepy the house was, But I ended up finding out that the woman that lived in that house before me passed away in the living room. And just knowing that, plus it was a creepy house, kind of every time I told somebody about it, it would kind of creep them out a little bit. Like, whoa, what if there's a ghost in there or something like that? Well, I told this friend that I brought over to my house that, the lady died in the living room. It's a creepy old house. And she said, you want to talk to her? I mean, what? She says, I know how to talk to dead people using Ouija boards. And at that point in my life, I knew nothing about anything spiritual or any divination tools. I knew nothing about any of that. My first thought was, that's about the dumbest thing I've heard somebody say in a long time. But why not? Why not? We're hanging out, drinking. Let's just see what this is all about. Just to say that I did. So what she did was she ripped a pizza box in half and took a black permanent marker and turned the pizza box into a Ouija board. And she took a beer bottle cap and used that as the little thing that you move. Oh yeah, and to me, I thought this was so ridiculous. This was so stupid. And we're sitting here with our fingers on this thing, asking it questions, and this thing is moving hard. But my thought is, she's putting on a show. I don't know if she's trying to impress me or trying to act cool, but this is so stupid. And this thing's moving, asking it questions. It's spelling words out and stuff. So in my mind, in my annoyed, drunk mind, I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask it a question. I'm going to ask it if it's a spirit that knows me, and I'm going to try to get it to spell its name. And I'm going to say, well, I guess that spirit's lying. I don't know anybody by that name. So yeah, let's just throw this thing away. I don't, in my weird drunk mind, that was the idea that I had in my mind. So I said, okay, let me ask it a question. Are you a spirit that knows me? And this thing went to yes. And I said, okay, spell your name. And it spelled out the name of my dead grandmother. And that freaked me out because it wasn't one of those common names that somebody could guess easily, like Sarah or Ashley or something like that. Her name was, well, the name she went by was Jeanette, Jeanette. And it spelled that out. And I went, we got to stop this right now. I guess I got my wish. I got my wish. And she said, wow, what's wrong? I said, dude, that's my grandma's name. And she said, whoa, cool. We're talking to your grandma. And I said, oh no. My grandma was a really hardcore Christian, and she'd be rolling over in her grave if she even knew I was doing this. She would never talk to me through a Ouija board, So we ripped it up, we threw it away, and this is where it starts getting silly. My house went nuts. It went crazy. Peanut butter jars flying off the shelf, cabinet doors slamming. And there was even several times where I would see like a black ball of energy roll across the room. And then you would hear banging on the air ducts, boom, 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 and it would echo through the whole house. And I guess it's a good thing I was drinking so heavily, because I was sitting around drinking 100 proof vodka all day. And I'm just kind of watching it like, whoa, that's cool, man. That's real. I always heard the stories, but I never believed it. I was like, I always thought everybody was just making it up. Like, that's real. That's so cool, And then one night after, probably four or 5 days into this, we're sitting at the kitchen table, and I don't remember what we were talking about. I was so drunk, but somehow suicide got brought up. And I don't remember the details of what I said or how it got brought up, but I said something to the effect of I'm just going to go do it, or something like that. And that's pretty much one of my last conscious memories. I kind of remember going down into my cellar and tying my belt around the rafter, and I got little flashes of that. But my next conscious memory is that I'm inside the wall down in my cellar, and I'm kind of suspended in like blackness, like darkness. It's all around me, all behind me, and in front of me, I could see what looked like a portal is the only way I could really describe it. And it was blurry and I could barely see through it, but I knew that on the other side of that portal was the inside of my cellar, but I couldn't really see it. I couldn't see what was going on. And this is the part that kind of bugs me too, because like I said, I'd been in love with near-death experience literature and had been trying to get up the nerve to go ahead and take myself out of here because it sounded so awesome over there on the other side. And I didn't get that kind of cool experience that I'd always heard. The beautiful white light, the feeling of unconditional love, all these downloads of universal knowledge and information and whatnot. I didn't get none of that. Matter of fact, it was very blah. Like I had no thoughts. That was the crazy part looking back. At the time, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't anything. I was just existing with no train of thought.
Inside the wall in blackness.
Yeah, inside the wall, suspended in the blackness. I was just existing. No thoughts, no like, oh my God, this is crazy. What am I doing here? There was nothing. I was just there, pretty much existing. And to the left of me were about 7 or 8 people. And this is where it gets kind of strange too, though, because I don't know how I didn't really have a train of thought, but somehow these 7 or 8 people were talking amongst themselves and talking to me inside my head at the same time. And I was responding to them all simultaneously with no confusion. That was the weird part. And I couldn't even begin to recap what all was talked about. But the only thing that I got out of it was, you invited us in here. We are pure negative energy. And it's strange because I was made to understand that I didn't know anything about energy back then either. I didn't even know what that meant. But we are the same force that causes anger, jealousy, sadness, fear. We're the energy that causes those emotions, pure. Like, your average person, well, pretty much everybody on the planet Earth is a mixture of the two. Some people are more negative than positive. Some people are more positive than negative. But in every human being, we have both, some ratio of positive to negative. And this was pure negative energy. They said, we're not here to hurt you. We're not here to do anything to you. We're just negative energy, and you invited us in here. And that was pretty much it. That's the only thing I remember taking from it. And I kind of started losing interest. I never really had any interest to begin with. It's so hard to describe, like I said, because there was no emotions and no train of thought. But I started drifting away, my focus. And I remember kind of having a little bit of a thought when I looked through the portal and thought something to the effect of, what's over there? And as soon as I put my focus on the portal and kind of wondered what was over there, I shot through it, through my cellar, and through the wall, the other wall on the other side of the room. And then I was in like a big field or like a meadow or something like that. And there was another being there that kind of, it was weird because at this point in time, my biological father was still alive, but it felt like it would be my dad. He's passed away now, but at the time he hadn't passed away. But it felt like a father figure. Like if he would have been dead at the time, I would have thought it was him. Like it was like a father figure, and he was scolding me, basically. I don't remember the conversation word for word, but basically the energy behind it was, you idiot. You know better than that. Because I was raised real hardcore Christian and whatnot. And that, I mean, honestly, even still to this day, I'm not religious. I knew better than to do something like that. Like, I'd always heard the stories, I just didn't believe it. But this being was basically saying, you idiot, you know better than that. Why would you do something like that? And the only way you're going to be able to get rid of that energy is through some sort of magic or spell work. Again, at this point in time, I knew nothing about any of that. So my next memory is I'm waking up in my bed with that friend that I had over at the foot of the bed, screaming and crying. You don't know what you just put me through. I can't believe you did that. And I got a pounding headache, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I just had the weirdest dream. And she said, you went down in the cellar and hung yourself, and your face turned white, your tongue was hanging out of your mouth, and your heart stopped beating, and you weren't breathing. So she said, I had to cut you down and do CPR to revive you. And I went, oh, quit lying, quit making shit up, you know? And she said, go look in the mirror. So I went and looked in the mirror, and I had a cut on my neck where the belt cut my neck. And I was like, whoa. And at that point, that was when I kind of got a little bit irritated and annoyed, because I was like, I finally had an NDE, but that's not the kind of NDE I was wanting to have. That wasn't cool to me.
Want your money back?
Yeah. I was like, that's not cool. But from that point forward, I did plan another suicide attempt, which was in November of 2014. And then I did it again in April of 2015, but I didn't really have much of an experience at all at that point. I thought to myself, well, last time I screwed up because I did it while somebody was at the house. And my only issue is I'm a single father. I have 2 kids. So if I do it while nobody's at the house, then there's nobody there to make sure the kids are okay. They were toddlers. They could burn the house down, go running out into traffic. So I got to figure out a plan. So I thought, okay, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to come home. I'm going to alert the police department on Facebook so that they can come pick up my kids. And hopefully by the time they come get my kids, I'll be dead and gone. Sweet. So that's what I did the following April, and did the same thing, went down to the same spot, tied the belt up to the rafter on the ceiling and put it around my neck. And as soon as I sent them the message saying, you know, you need to come pick up my kids, I'm about to kill myself, I saw that they viewed it. I threw my phone down in the dirt and I dropped and was out instantly. And if I did have an experience, I don't remember it. The only thing I remember is the most beautiful, peaceful sleep I have ever experienced in my life. And I'm waking up from it. And my memory was completely deleted and erased completely, where I'm thinking I'm waking up in my bed about to go to work. So, you know, when you wake up in the morning and your brain wakes up, but your eyes are still closed and you're thinking, oh man, I guess my alarm hasn't gone off yet. That was my thought. So I start reaching for a blanket and then my nails dug in the dirt and it snapped me awake. I was like, what am I doing on the dirt floor? And then I rolled over and I saw the belt was hanging up from the ceiling and the buckle had snapped off. And then that's when I heard the police trying to beat the door down. And I was like, oh man. And they took me to University of Louisville Hospital and x-rayed my neck to make sure I didn't break any vertebrae, and then stuck me in a mental hospital where I ended up sitting there for a month. And I again was still not spiritual at all, but I came to know I'm not allowed to leave. And from that point, I haven't been suicidal ever since then. That was back in 2015. And yeah, that's pretty much my experience.
I listened to you on another channel, and you talked about how embarrassed you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I felt really stupid because, you know, when I personally believe that when you're really, really, really suicidal, you're not really going to talk about it. So it was something I didn't really talk about. I might have mentioned it a couple of times, but I don't think anybody was really expecting me to actually do it. So for me to live through it and put my family through that, it was really embarrassing. I felt really stupid. So that was another reason I think why, along with knowing obviously I'm not allowed to leave, I don't want to live through it again. So it kind of kicked the suicidal tendencies out of me after that. But yeah, it was really embarrassing.
And you talk real nonchalant about it, and I used to talk about things like that, and it just seems like that's easier way to address such a depressing time in our life than what people, I think people misunderstand when we talk like that, and they don't realize that that's a mask, that these are hard things to
Well, how else am I
talk
supposed to talk
about.
about it?
Right. And I think a lot of people probably don't talk about an NDE if it was related to suicide. I mean, I've had a few on, but because I think a lot of people just don't talk about their suicide attempts because embarrassment. And
Yeah, I have a very, very dark past behind me. And if it wasn't for what I do for a living, I probably wouldn't talk about it at all. But I'm very, very open about my past because I know there are so many people out there in the same place that I was at. And I want to be one of those people who's living proof that you can make it better. you know.
So you want to explain how you made it better? What went from there?
Well, yeah, after my last suicide attempt, I went to the mental hospital, and then I got out of the mental hospital and ended up losing everything and going homeless. So I lived under a bridge and ate out of a trash can for the next 6 months. And when wintertime was rolling around at the end of 2015, I turned myself into a homeless shelter, and I stayed in the first homeless shelter for a few months, and then I left there and went to a transitionary home where I could work. So one of the things that I like to do was stop at the McDonald's down the street from my work and sit around and play on my phone and watch YouTube videos. And I was there looking up near-death experiences, you know? So I saw a near-death experience titled, "I Saw the Law of Attraction in My NDE." And I thought, what in the world does that mean? And I clicked on it, and there's this lady talking about we have the ability, basically, to create our wildest dreams if we want to. And from where I had just been at that low, dark place, I got addicted to it. I was like, whoa, you're telling me that all this stuff I've been going through, I have the ability to uncreate that and create something new? Okay. So I got addicted to it. I got absolutely addicted to it. I kind of chucked the near-death experiences aside, and this was my new obsession now. And I dug a really deep rabbit hole on that journey. And I even ended up attending a special mind mastery school that was founded and taught by a former NASA scientist, where I learned the science behind how it works. And yeah, and I've just been basically dedicating my life to healing all of my trauma, learning how to transmute and process through all that negative, dark energy and climb up out of that. And on my journey, I was put in the position to coach people and help people do the same.
So you turn this into a business, right?
Yeah. Yep. I was put in a position where it was so strange, because it started off with, I ended up becoming interested in the YouTube tarot card reading videos. And I just decided to play around one day and put a couple of the videos on my YouTube channel, and wasn't expecting anybody to watch it. And then my YouTube channel blew up. And then right after my YouTube channel blew up, me and the girl I was dating broke up. And I ended up, everything started happening in my life where I was living in some strange town. At this point, I'd been doing a lot of traveling. I was living in some strange town. I lost my job, and that was the only way that I had access to money. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to keep this going, but I'm not really into that tarot thing the way most people do it. So I was like, no, you know what I can do though? I can bring people to me and offer them, if they want it, advice and guidance on how to correct and help change their situation and whatnot. And that's kind of what I've become known for over the past several years. And it kind of, I was put in that position, and I was like, okay, all right, well, let's go ahead and do this then.
You know, what I find interesting is, personally for me, about your story, is, I had 2 NDEs, but then a couple years ago, which they were at age 5 and 25, but a couple of years ago, I got really sick, and I've been sick for days, and I was afraid to go to the hospital because the whole COVID stuff was just starting to go on. And I would lay on the floor and pass out, which is uncommon. I have irritable bowel, just something I deal with for years. But this night, my husband said, don't lay on that cold bathroom floor again tonight. Let me go get you a blanket. So that means I had to sit on the toilet and wait for him to bring me back that blanket. And I thought, I can't do this. I'm going to pass out sitting up. And I'm trying to listen to him. He go gets that blanket. And next thing I know, I hit the floor. And when I hit the floor, suddenly I'm in the wall. And you're the only other person I've heard say that he was in the wall. And I've talked about this a few times on my channel. Not very much, because it was just so quick. I don't even call it an NDE. For me personally, I didn't call it NDE. I called it an OBE, because suddenly, like when I hit the floor, I was suddenly in the wall in the bathroom right beside me. And it was dark, like what you experienced. But what I experienced with the people was there was a ton of people, like it's having a big party. There's no social distancing. Everybody's real tight up against each other, and they're all talking at once. And I wanted to join in. I was curious. I knew this was heaven. I knew this was the other side. And I was like, huh, what'd you say? What'd you say? Because everything sounded underwater, kind of muffled. And I couldn't hear what they were saying. And there especially seemed like there's one female that I really wanted to hear what she was saying. And they were like talking to each other, but I felt kind of like they were talking to me too. So I resonate with you. And then I could hear my husband saying, baby, baby, or he's trying to get me to come back. And so he says, oh, yeah, a few seconds. And so I thought, like, curiosity killed the cat. I need to go follow his voice, not this woman, because maybe I won't come back. And that's all there was to it. It was just a few seconds, but I never forgot it because my drowning at age 5 was all out of body, looking down and being this ghost kid, going doing stuff. And at 25, it was through the tunnel in heaven, fighting, screaming. I demanded I got to go back to raise my kids and stuff like that. So I had heard, like you, listened to a lot of NDEs in the last few years, and I thought, wow, I'd like to have, you know, some of those beautiful experiences that they have. And they talk all about the love and all this, like they see beautiful pasture, green field and flowers that talk or whatever. And you know, none of that, but I just had a quick little thing. And I was embarrassed to talk about it because I thought people are going to say, like, you already had 2 NDEs, you don't get a third. And for me personally, that for me, it wasn't NDE, it was this little out of body thing. But if it would have been like for what you did when you were actually, you know, dead, then, you know, I think that makes it an NDE because I wasn't dead, you know, and my husband would say, yeah, she wasn't dead. I just couldn't get her come back. But I passed out over the years, gosh, hundreds of times, never had a dream, never had an experience. It was just that one time.
Yeah, and it's weird too because I don't know. I still, well, I don't know. I've kind of been led to understand a couple of things. Like, at least for me, that number one, I was vibrating at too low of a frequency to make it over to the white light because obviously my vibe was really low, really low. But also, too, I think I've been made to understand that if I was allowed to see the other side, I wouldn't have come back, and I had a mission, you know. So,
Or you would have tried again. I want to go back
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Age 4, suicide ideation.
yeah. And then after sitting in the mental hospital, I was so mad. I was like, I've been planning that for months, and I lived through it. I was so mad and so embarrassed and felt so stupid that I was like, I'm not allowed to leave. I'm not allowed to leave. And somehow that, see, the way I look at that suicidal mindset, I look at it kind of like a spectrum where I think I could be wrong on this, but I would feel safe betting that most of us have at least had the thought a time or two whenever we're going through something that we don't want to be going through, or our feelings are hurt really bad. The thought has crossed our mind. I could be wrong on that, but then there's a line where when you cross that line, you're about to do it. And it's so strange because in a weird way, you kind of go numb. Like, it's almost like there are no emotions anymore. There is no anger. There is no sadness. There is no nothing. It's like a numbness is the only way I can describe it. And going through that experience felt like it pulled me back over that line to where I was no longer at that place where I was going to do it. Of course, I had the thoughts a few times, but I've always I just am not at that place. Have never reached that place where I'm going to actually do it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty because it's a hard thing to talk about. Like I call it incident. Like I won't call it a suicide attempt. I call it incident. And the hospital didn't keep me because they blamed on Ambien. Though my doctor had prescribed me Ambien to help me sleep. And I got up one morning, I drove and dropped off our adopted kids at the Catholic school. And then I called my husband, who was working in Philadelphia at the time. I'm in Ohio, and said my goodbyes. And then he's like, what are you talking about? And then I called and it was that numb, like you're talking. I called my daughter-in-law who worked in town where I was at, where school was. And I said, remember how I always told you, anything happened to me, I want you and my son to raise 6 kids. You know, and that's not thinking clearly, as if she wanted my 9 adopted teenage brats. You know, they wanted a baby. They're trying to conceive. It's just stupid thinking. And so she's like, what? She got mad at me. What are you talking about? And so I parked my van at the bank where she worked, not telling her that I parked it there, thinking she's going to need this to pick up the kids after school. None of it made sense. And then I got out of the van and I walked across the bridge over from West Virginia to Ohio, went to Rite Aid, filled my prescriptions. I had a thermos of coffee, and I walked to a place I grew up, a shack, where I was a kid that I'd recently bought just to tear it down. And so I went there, and all the way walking on the railroad track all the way there, I'm thinking, Jesus understands. He knows what I've been through. I can't take any more. Like, I'm on my last leg. This is it. I just can't do anymore. I wasn't sad. It was like you said, you just numb. You're calm. You accepted it. Like, this is the thing to do. It lies to you. It lies. Yeah. And so I sat down. I scratched up a stupid note on a receipt and went to sleep. I took a few pills, went to sleep. I woke up, and like you, the best peaceful sleep I ever had in my life. You know, my problem is my brother, who I can't stand, who tried sexually abusing when I was growing up. And I recently confronted him about that at my mom's, and so he was not happy. Him and his grown daughter show up. He's on the phone. He didn't look at me. He's calling to say he found me or something. I guess they was looking for me. I don't know how long I was asleep. It was still daylight. And his daughter standing there screaming at me, snarling, guilt tripping me. How could you do this to your mother? She's worried about you. My mom wasn't worried about me. And she didn't call and check on me later. She go crap. But so I just got up. I didn't talk to him. I just got up and walked past him, walked down the steps. I thought, I gotta get my van. Like, I had this nap. I'm not suicidal now. I feel great. I just need really good sleep, I think. And I went to walk back to get in my van thinking, what time is it? I'm gonna have to make up some lie about why I'm late or something. I don't know what to do. And so I thought, well, I can think about that on the walk there. All of a sudden, my brother grabs me and he beats me up and he knocks me out cold. And when I wake up, because he starts chasing me, he said, get back here. Like, he called the police on to come get me or something. I'm like, no. And so I'm running, trying to get away from him, going towards the highway. Well, he told everybody later that I was going to kill myself on the highway. No, I wasn't. I don't think he thought that either. That was an excuse to beat me up. But I woke up in this little pavilion along the road, and a squad is backed up, and it has this really cute squad guy, looked like Michael Landon. And there's this other guy there. And I saw my brother and his daughter on the left of the squad that's backed up. And I saw my son and his wife on their side. They weren't even there. I did not know it for like a year because I couldn't talk about this. I was so ashamed, like you. And they said, Peggy, we weren't there. My daughter says, we weren't there. I saw them. Like, they were there. So, but, went to hospital, and they're like, you didn't even take enough I give you the charcoal, you didn't take enough to do anything. But I couldn't talk about that.
Yeah.
I couldn't talk about it to anybody. I call it the incident. And they didn't keep me because they said there wasn't much in your system. Your husband, he flew, like, drove really fast from Philadelphia, got there. My kids was all there, my grown kids. And they said, you have support now. Your husband's home. And this is due to Ambien. Ambien makes people do crazy things. And so, like, I don't know, like, do I take responsibility and say, I had a suicide attempt? Or do I say, oh, it was Ambien? I don't know. I don't know what it was. So
it's hard to say,
but for you to just talk about it so casual, I'm like, that's brave.
Well, yeah, I mean, with what I do now and what I do for a living, like I said, I don't know if you know what I do, but I'm a YouTube tarot card reader. I have an audience of about 350,000, and I chose to use that position that I was put in to try to help people overcome some of the things that I've overcome. So, like, I'm very, very open about my past. It was hard at first. It was really hard to tell people my story and whatnot. And now, like, I've come to realize that I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here and why I went through all that, was to let people know who are at that low rock bottom place that, look, I've been there. I'm somebody that people look at and they think that I'm just this guy on the internet who has this good life and makes good money and has a good business, and I'm happily married to my life partner, and they think, oh, well, it must be nice to be you. And it's like, no, because I was where you are, and I'm living proof that you can heal that pain and that trauma, and that it can get better. And that's what I pretty much dedicate my life to, trying to help people do if they want the help, So
That's awesome.
over the years, it's gotten easier to talk about, a little bit easier. But I do know that there's a lot of healing that needs to be done still, because I recently took my kids back to Louisville, Kentucky to visit their mom last month. And I went and visited the town that I grew up in. And as soon as I set foot downtown there, it swallowed me whole. And I felt all those old nasty demons creep back up, and like I was being engulfed. And it was so strange because I could feel myself being engulfed in that energy of hopelessness. And it was really bizarre to be able to revisit it with all the healing that I have done. And I felt like that was, the universe's way of showing me you still got a little bit of healing left to do, and to be reminded, because I couldn't even stand setting foot. I was right down the street from my house where I did it. And I showed my wife that house, and just driving past that old house, it was just made my stomach turn. I didn't like being there. So yeah, it gets easier as it goes on, but the healing path is, it's healing isn't something that happens to you. You don't just sit around and wait to heal. It requires a lot of conscious work and conscious effort, but it gets a little bit easier, especially, with all the people that I help nowadays. It gets easier to tell my story. But
That is a concern about listening to NDEs. Is it going to make some people suicidal?
mm-hmm. Has that happened to people? I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I've heard people have suicidal thoughts because they listen to NDEs.
I could see that. I could see that.
I've seen a lot in NDE groups over the years. People say that's on NDE groups, they're asking questions about what it's like and stuff, and they say they want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've had to report a few suicide threats online before. And that's kind of hard to do when you're, Facebook isn't much help. But so what I started doing is I look at their about and look at their family and try to find a parent. And I contacted somebody's dad one time, and they was able to get a hold of him. He was suicidal. They thanked me later, but at the time you think, gosh, I want to make somebody mad. You don't, it's a risk you take.
Well, I'll let it be known to anybody out there that's thinking that you don't. No, that's not the way. No, you don't want to go out like that, because again, too, I don't know. I've heard a few different stories, but the lower of a vibrational frequency that you're at, if you go ahead and take yourself out, from my experience, that tells me you're really far away from the light. It's not going to be fun. I made it as far as to the lower astral realm, where I'm assuming that's where ghosts and spirits hang out, which is just, and it's funny because I could see right through into this dimension. So it's just one little density over, way too low of a vibration to make it to the light. So if I promise you don't want to do that. You don't want to take yourself out.
I imagine, I'm only guessing, but I imagine that you would be shown the life you would have had if you didn't do it. Say children you would have had, or grandchildren, or something in your life that you really wish you could have experienced, but you ended it too soon.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that I think too, because one of the things that I've been working on trying to figure out how to do is I always make it a strong point to try to talk about things in a way that nobody else has done it, because you have to be able to connect with somebody to be able to get them to awaken to a new idea or to understand something. And when it comes to like that suicidal mindset and whatnot, I think one of the biggest things that drives people to being suicidal is they do not believe that it can ever get better, because of the way, kind of like the system that we were born into and brought up in, and the way we're programmed to think and the way this life is set up, and it's set up to be really, really hard. And most people, like myself included, just do not believe that it can get better. And like, it can, helping people understand that it can, and here's how you do it. And, you know, I even break it down from a perspective of neuroscience, rewiring your own brain to get rid of depression. And yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I try to help people understand, is that, you know, it can get better, but you have to make it better. And getting people to understand that, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
It's hard
And
to
I
explain.
think your first one was snap decision and your second was planned.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, I've had NDEs on, but it was a snap decision, and others had planned it. And when I was 16, it was a snap decision. A friend of mine was on the payphone and something just struck me, and I walked quietly away from her. It was at night. There wasn't much traffic on the road. Then I seen a semi coming, and I stepped out in the middle of the road, and I just looked at those lights thinking, come on, hurry up, come on. I just wanted flattened. And all of a sudden she grabs my arm and pulls me out of the road. I mean, the semi's honking, it was snap. But, I could say it was snap, but then I was sitting in the bathtub with a razor blade, getting mad at myself because I didn't have the courage. So, but, that was snap to do it that way.
Yeah. And you know what's funny too, that I was just right before I came on here with this call, I was listening to an interview on another podcast that I listened to, where somebody was, one of the things that they had learned during an NDE is that, now I don't know if this is true, it sounds legit to me, that you'll have to come back in an alternate dimension and start your same life all over again. And
that sucks.
Yeah, until you get up to that point. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, just think about that. You're either going to have to come back and do your same life all over again, or do something over again. You don't just get out of it. So it's kind of like pointless anyways, because it's not like you're escaping anything. You're not getting out of anything. And they're just going to send you right back. So got to figure out how to make the best of it while you're here,
Yeah. And so, I wrote down something. Where is it? Something interests me that I read about on your bio about what's this Mastery Matrix series? What's that? That's not interesting.
Yeah. I recently joined High Vibe TV, and I started my own show called Mastering the Matrix. And basically, like I said, the only thing I ever really dedicated my life to learning was law of attraction. Because I got, when I'm homeless and I hear there's this thing I can do to fix my situation. And one of the things that I learned is that there's a lot of information on the internet that is incredibly misleading. So I've come up with a little series on High Vibe TV where I'll do one episode a week where I'm breaking down and explaining the manifestation, law of attraction, universal laws, to help people understand better how this world that we're in, or this matrix, or whatever you want to call it, how it functions, how your energy affects everything around you, how your life experiences are created, and how to get in touch with your vibration. And if you want to change something in your life, how to actually go about it from a practical point of view to change your vibration so that it can take you off of a frequency that's producing a negative outcome and put you on a better frequency that'll improve your life. So that's pretty much what that is.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to go over or cover?
No, not too much. It's good that I've been invited on a few different podcasts this year to talk about this, because yeah, it's an embarrassing story, and I still look back. I've been kind of hoping and wishing and waiting over the years that maybe there's more to that experience that I haven't remembered, because I've heard some NDE experiences where somebody will remember it, the memories will come to them years later, and I'm thinking maybe that'll happen to me one day. Maybe the memories will come back and I'll remember what more of the other side or something like that. But no, it's still because whenever I would hear somebody tell a story similar to the experience that I had, I didn't ever believe it. Ouija boards and evil spirits and stuff like that. At the time, I never believed it. So I still kind of wrestle with the fact that I had one of those experiences, and it sounds kind of dumb. And it's not one of those cool going through the tunnel and being greeted by other beings and all that. And yeah, I think I do. That is part of my story that I need to start sharing and being more open with, because I'm very open about the fact that I was homeless and whatnot for years, and I've helped a lot of people, come up out of homelessness and start creating better situations like that. But no, I just went ahead and took the opportunity to come on here to tell that story, because I think I need to start talking about it more.
I remembered my second NDE, my first NDE after my second. After my second NDE was a tubal pregnancy, 25 years old. And not long after that, I went outside by myself, looked up the night sky, just get away from my ex-husband. He's from a big Catholic family, and I just wanted to get to de-stress. And I looked up in the night sky, and all of a sudden I saw my 5-year-old drowning, the near-death experience, which I didn't know that word at the time, from front to back, just like I was watching a movie on a big old movie screen. And it like took me over, like I jolted when it was over. And I said out loud to myself outside alone, like, did I drown when I was little? So the next day I went to my mom's house. Did I drown when I was little? I only had 2 questions. Did I drown when I was little, and how did you find me? Because I remember seeing this whole experience, and I recall it, perfectly to this day, just like my second NDE. But at that time, I could only comprehend, like, did I drown? And how'd you find me? Because in this experience, I don't remember the rescue. I remember hovering, I remember flying, I remember running around the yard as this ghost kid playing with other kids and realizing they can't see me and those kind of things. But I didn't remember anybody, like the finding me part. Next thing I know, I carried over my brother's shoulder and I'm barfing up water down his back. And she says, yeah, you did. And so it took her a while to remember how she found me. And she says, I thought about that. And I went to my brother and sister was there, because I seen him as I was hovering above. I knew he was there. Like, yeah, you did. And but my mom said, when I realized you weren't there, she had my brother go where he saw me last and keep diving down until he found me. But so yeah, I mean, I remember mine 20 years later, and I had no memory of it. And then once I remembered it, bits and pieces kept coming back over time that I would think, oh, that's weird. That's doesn't even make sense. And I didn't talk about it for a long, long time. Because it made absolutely no sense when I started listening to NDEs. And I think I even read an NDE book or 2. I know I read one. And I started watching the IONS, conference, people talking, and fascinated. I survived and back. Then one day I thought, is that what mine was? Was mine an NDE? Because it seemed so different. It was so personal. It was so embedded, like hidden in me. And and then mine's different. Mine's different than a lot of people's. And then people would think, oh, I want to die and have an NDE like that. It doesn't mean you'll get an NDE like that. Both of mine were very different.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's one of those things. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I had never considered that maybe listening to NDEs makes people suicidal. I figured that was just me.
it does. I've heard it. There's a lot of people that think, I even see it in my comments sometimes, that they say, I can't wait to go because I just watched this on your show. And I mean, yeah, we all can say, oh yeah, I can't wait to go, it'll be great. But there's another thing just to actually think, well, I'm going to make it happen sooner.
Yeah. Don't do that. I'm here to tell you from experience, you don't want to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. I've really enjoyed meeting you.
Absolutely. You too. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.